Welcome to the T20 World Cup semi-final, second preview between India and England. I'm Steve Wiss. I'm joined by Kevin Harper. Yesterday, you certainly called that Pakistan win, Kev, a bit unlucky with some of the side bets as well, really. But Pakistan into that final very convincingly, really. And it's going to be England or India that join them now.
Yeah, run out should be worth 30 points, shouldn't they? They really should.
Mm.
Come on, whoever, come on, help us out a little bit here. Yeah, it was too easy for Pakistan, wasn't it? Shadab Khan didn't even have to get into bat. So yeah, bit annoying that one. Obviously, we called the game right. It went exactly as I expected it to go. New Zealand lost their kingpin at the top very quickly, stumbled their way through. Kane Williamson's innings never got going. None of them from him have done throughout this tournament. And the rest couldn't make up for it. And then, as we suggested, one of or both Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan would come to the party like class acts do. They did. And Pakistan won that an awful lot easier than the scoreboard would suggest. And it looks pretty easy on the scoreboard.
It's like them two openers batted with no fear. It was just like, forget what's happened. We're kind of swinging here. We shouldn't still win the tournament. Sod it. We'll just go for it. And then they just went for the shots brilliantly. I thought Rizwan did top score. Like you said, it would be him. It would have been the more likely. And he so delivered. So we move on to the second semi-final. We are in Adelaide this time. Your favourite cricket ground in Australia, Kev. And I got a feeling you're going to say that this is a perfect venue for a semi-final. Considering the ground and its dimensions, and that we'll have a look in as we always do on Google Earth. But for those who are not familiar with this ground, it's called the Adelaide Oval for a reason, because it is oval shaped, very long dimensions down the ground, but side of the wicket, you can certainly get a pitch shot for six sometimes, can't you? Although I imagine this will be right slap bang in the middle of the square here. But pretty much as it says on the tin, really, Kev, isn't it? These boundaries, square of the wicket, can be peppered.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, perfect. Perfect venue for a semi-final. I was a little concerned when I heard that it was going to be played on a used pitch, but Joss Butler, by all accounts, isn't too worried. Apparently, it's the pitch that Australia played Afghanistan on, which played pretty well, and that was 6 days ago. So the groundsman's had plenty of time to restore that to its natural beauty. So yeah, I'm expecting a high-quality, high-scoring contest.
Do you know what? I was shocked to hear that it was a used pitch in Sydney for the first semi-final, and this is obviously going to be a used pitch as well. I get that there's not been much action on it, but it's a bloody semi-final. You've got to plan in advance to have a fresh pitch, in my opinion. I personally believe it to be quite poor. Nevertheless, it is what it is, and it should still play pretty well. Let's take a look at the weather forecast for the game. We're thankfully in territory now where I don't think weather is a factor, is it, in this tournament? It should be fine. We are in a local kickoff time around, I think it's 6:30, something like that anyway. But either way, there's no rain forecast anytime from midday onwards in Adelaide. So nothing to worry about in that capacity, which means we're going to have a look at the teams and the odds for the game. And England are the underdogs here. Not by much, but they are nevertheless a dog at 2.1 price, which I'm a bit surprised at. I actually thought the odds would be the other way around. And I guess the explanation for that might just be that India are the sort of side that can get very hyped up. And also, to be fair to them, they have been quite impressive in the tournament, Kev.
Yeah, they have. But again, we referenced this on the first semi-final. That first game of the tournament made all the difference, and it was decided on one ball. They won that game against Pakistan, but they win that, I don't know, 1 in 100 times, maybe not even that many times. So it could have been so different if they'd lost that, particularly off the back of last year where they were out before they started. You got to say about India, they won the first one of these back in 2007. They've not made a final since. And, this is India, the global powerhouse who have so much sort of resources, often an awful lot of things bent in their favour to help them, and they've not reached the final, have they? They've got the biggest T20 competition in the world, the global setter in terms of the T20 franchise leagues. So for them not to have made a final, and you look right the way through since 2007, 15 years ago, the players that have come and gone and not got their hands on this trophy, there's plenty of stars in this current side, Virat Kohli being one. But there are an awful lot of players who've not got their hands on this trophy, who should have got their hands on this trophy. And, maybe expectation and the weight of it holds them back a little bit, particularly when we get to seemingly this stage of a tournament.
Yeah, there might be neutrals watching this who don't know much about cricket, but India really, they are probably the power horse of cricket, aren't they? In terms of a lot of things run through that country. I don't know what the population is of India, but it's high. There's a lot of people live in that country, and they're cricket mad, absolutely cricket mad. The whole team comes under scrutiny, and it can be a good or a bad thing. If they lose this game, they'll be all held to account. If they don't win the tournament from here, they're going to be held to account, and that can put pressure on. But the players are used to it, aren't they? What's impressed you the most about India in this particular tournament, though?
The bowling, the new ball bowling in particular. Arshdeep Singh's been a revelation, hasn't he? Mohammad Shami's probably bowled better than his figures suggest. We mentioned on the Sunday podcast, Bhuvneshwar Kumar has bowled beautifully as well. And although they haven't all combined as one in that top four, they've all got runs at different times, haven't they? But 3 and 4, Kohli and Surya Kumar Yadav, they're probably going to be fighting it out for the player of the tournament over this game and, well, hopefully for India's point of view, the next game.
On to England then, and I'll be honest, I didn't see England really going this deep at one stage of this tournament. I mean, I said that, didn't I, in one of the shows? But to be fair, they have come up with the goods when needed in the last couple of matches. Certainly the performance against New Zealand was much needed. They got over the line against Sri Lanka, did what was needed. I still don't think they're fully firing, which might be a good thing. Now, maybe that now will come for England. And, a venue of Adelaide might well suit them.
I think Adelaide will suit them. I think you're right. I think you're right that England haven't really fired on all cylinders. But I think it's also important to suggest that the two games that they needed to win, the New Zealand game, they absolutely dominated that game. And they were much further ahead against Sri Lanka than the scorecard would suggest in the end. They bowled very, very well. They were never not getting that target. They had a little bit of a wobble getting to that target. They kind of got lost between getting there as quickly as they could or just getting there. And in the end, they kind of limped over the line in it. But they were much more dominant than the scorecard in that game suggested. But the important thing from England's point of view, and I referenced this in the first semi-final preview, that England game against Sri Lanka was knockout cricket. If England won, they would go through to this semi-final. If they'd lost, they were out. India haven't played a game of that magnitude yet. England have. They held their nerve together. Yeah, okay, you'd liked it to have been an ounce more convincing towards the end of the innings. But the David Malan injury didn't help matters halfway through that match. So, no, there was a lot to like about England in that game. And, of course, a very similar threat posed by Sri Lanka in terms of the way they go about their things from Asian conditions with spinners and pace bowling as what England are going to face from India here. So that game was perfect preparation for England. And if they can just up it by another 10%, then I would be very surprised if England don't win this match.
David Malan and Mark Wood doubtful for England for this game. How big a problem is it if either of those aren't fit?
I don't think it's a problem per se if David Malan's not fit. Phil Salt's perfectly adequate replacement. He'll bat at 3. He might not even need to bat at 3. They could always promote a Moeen Ali or a Ben Stokes to bat at 3. That wouldn't necessarily be a problem. The problem probably would be if Wood doesn't play. He would be the one who would be expected to bounce or kind of shoot out Kohli or Yadav. And if he haven't got that pace, that searing pace in the middle order, and it's going to be Chris Jordan who comes in for him, who isn't sluggish by any stretch of the imagination. And what he'll do is he'll gain, England will gain in the field with Jordan. But there's not that 95 or 90 plus mile an hour breakneck speed that really puts the EBGBs up the batters. So he would be more of a concern for me. And by the sounds of it, he's less likely to play than Malan. But I don't think Malan's going to play either. I'm not too worried about Malan. He's the kind of glue that holds the innings together. But Stokes did that pretty well in the last game, didn't he? So, I'd be more concerned that Wood misses out. And I don't think England are going to risk him because if they do win this game, they certainly don't want to push him here and then not have him for the final.
Right, some match bets then. I'm actually going to start us off here with a pick, and it's England to win. And I tell you why I like this bet. Number one is the price. I actually just think on pure value, England as a clear underdog, I think is wrong. I think it's a pick'em game at worst. If anything, I would have England as a slight favourites. And I think it's just this overhype sometimes of India. Maybe the bookmakers are slightly down on England as well. But they bat all the way down, really down to 11, England do. They can keep swinging all the time, these short square boundaries, and it's a gun batting up. They can afford to lose five or six wickets, and they can still hit runs. We know that top four of India is very, very strong indeed. But if England were to make some inroads into it, I'm not so sure they've got as much depth. And look, it's going to be a close game. There's no doubt about it. I don't think anyone's going to dominate this match. So, it's not a banker or anything, but England at 2.1, I looked at this price, couldn't resist it. Certainly respect India. I like what they're doing with the new ball. I like what the form that Virat Kohli's in, and Yadav is probably the best T20 batsman right now. But I just think overall extra depth for England and the price. So they are going to be my pick for the game at 2.1 to win. Your first bet, Kev, is going to be in the sixes market, over 11.5 sixes at William Hill, at even money here, 4-unit selection. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, Steve. If you think back to that Australia-Afghanistan game on this pitch a few days ago, Afghanistan were smacking sixes left, right and centre, weren't they, against that Australia side? So that in itself shows the potential for sixes. I think if you saw the Netherlands game, even the Netherlands were hitting plenty of sixes against South Africa, including one absolutely fantastic catch from one of the volunteers in the crowd. It just came along.
Yeah, one-hander, wasn't
it? Wasn't it? Absolutely fantastic piece of fielding. He should have been on the pitch for South Africa, really. But he'd certainly got into the Sri Lanka side as a fielder, that is for sure. But yeah, basically the ground dimensions just promote sixes here. I don't think England are going to sort of come out and not fire. India have been hitting sixes all through the tournament, haven't they? Even Kohli's been hitting sixes. I expect England to be bowling into the wicket here. I don't think there's going to be anything pitched up. So the Indians are going to get plenty of hook shots, but they've gone pretty well with that, haven't they? They played against South Africa in Perth and got a few hook shots away. They've done likewise in that game against Pakistan at the MCG. So I certainly think India will contribute to the sixes. Don't see any reason why England won't either, particularly if the top two get in. It's a perfect ground for them. They'll have to deal with that Arshdeep Singh spell, but if they can get through that, and the fact that Milan's not playing, or at least we don't think he's going to play, that's only going to bring Salt into the equation. Phil Salt, this was his home ground when he was at the Adelaide Strikers, so that will suit him. He'll know exactly what to do and how to, what boundaries to chase and what boundaries not to. And I just think, half a dozen sixes from each side isn't really asking a lot in what I expect to be a pretty high-scoring game. The first semi-final wasn't that high-scoring, but we highlighted in advance why that could be the case had Finn Allen got out cheaply. That's not really the case here. If the openers get out cheaply here, you've got Kohli and Yadav in the form of their life, or you've got Ben Stokes and Moeen Ali, pretty big six-hitters themselves. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think England will win. The only thing that put me off of not backing England to win are those two injury doubts and the fact that India won in England in the UK summer. But I think the sixes will come here. They flowed in two of those three games in England, and on this ground, I see no reason why they can't keep on flowing.
Over 11.5 sixes at William Hill there, even money for a 4-unit pick. You got one more selection for the game. Virat Kohli, man of the match. It's a 7-1 poke here. Fairly self-explanatory, really. If he does anything in a cricket match, he will get man of the match. He's probably the most famous cricketer in the world.
And it's probably hard to see India winning this if he doesn't do something. Yes, there's Surya Kumar Yadav, who is a genuine runner, and we hope that if India do win the game, that Yadav is the one to score the runs, because there's only something like 24 runs between him and Kohli in what is now a match to be the top run scorer in the tournament. No one else is in the same time zone as those two. So, and obviously we're on Yadav at 25-1 to be the leading scorer in this tournament. So I'd be quite happy for this bet to lose to Yadav, Steve. But history will tell you that if India come good in big matches, Virat Kohli steps up and he's counted. He's played in 2 semi-finals throughout the course of his time, and he scored 50s in both of them. you go back to the IPL, generally when the Royal Challengers Bangalore need an innings from him in the big crunch matches, he delivers on that occasion. And obviously he's going to bat above Yadav, which will give him probably slightly better chance to impress than Yadav if someone who bats with Kohli, one of the openers bats with Kohli, and they put a partnership on. So listen, he's the box office marquee man in the game, isn't he? If India win the game, I find it extremely hard to believe that Kohli's not a runner for man of the match.
Yeah, if he does anything, and he is in good form, I must say, I actually wouldn't. I've got a feeling England might do something to him here today in this match, but you can't ignore that form. I would certainly take 21 Yadav runs to a Kohli duck and India getting knocked out, and we will be getting Yadav top run scorer outright at 25-1. So, yeah, let's just see. But if he does have a good game, he's certainly a shoe-in for man of the match, it must be said. Into that top batsman market then for India, you're looking at Kohli or Yadav, really, aren't you, to have a good match? Is there anyone else that might potentially go well against England, though?
Well, I mean, England are terrible at the death historically, aren't they? You think back to this particular match last year in the semi-final, England had New Zealand beat, and then all of a sudden the death bowling, well, it didn't come to the party, did it? That was the big problem. The death bowling got carted all round Abu Dhabi, and before you knew it, New Zealand were in the final, and England were on the plane home. So maybe that opens the door to Dinesh Karthik, but he hasn't really been in fully sort of functioning form, has he? So yeah, like you say, I'd be surprised if number 3 or 4, Kohli or Yadav, isn't the top scorer in this match.
And on the England side, then, who are you thinking here? Is it a match where Josh Butler really steps up?
England will hope so. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about his record against Bhuvneshwar Kumar and Arshdeep Singh, for that matter. So there is that against him. Me personally, I would be looking, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, he hasn't yet come off, but I can't believe he's going to keep on not coming off. Moeen Ali, both of the Indian spinners here are going to spin it into the left-hander. Square boundaries here are very, very short, and he is the best player of spin in the England side. He could bat 4 here, couldn't he, in this match if Stokes goes in at 3 and he's out and England want a left-hander, right-hand, which they will in this game. This is very much a match-up determined game for England, this one, because of the size of the boundaries. So, yeah, he could be a big price, 17-1, 18-1, something like that. Big price for a guy who's played an awful lot of Indian Premier League cricket, scores very, very well in that competition, and knows all of these bowlers well.
Phil Salt could come into the lineup. He's a 4-1 shot there. And, you know, a lot might look at that and why is he third favourite? It's because if he does play, he could be batting up fairly highly.
You'd imagine he would bat 3, but then there's also the potential that if the openers get off to a decent start, bat to the 8th or 9th over, and then the spinners come in, that England would shove Moeen Ali up to take advantage of the spin. So if they lost an early wicket, it'd be a surprise if Salt doesn't walk in at 3. But if they don't lose an early wicket, much like Malan himself, he could be one to slide right the way down.
Brilliant. Right. Well, we will have a quick recap here and remind ourselves of the 3 bets that we are suggesting for this semi-final, and that is England to win at 2.1 with Coral 3-unit selection, over 11.5 sixes at evens with William Hill, and Virat Kohli man of the match 7-1 Royal Sports just for 1 unit there. Let's hope we can get 3 winners. And, you know, from this show's perspective, England make the final. Pakistan are already there, of course. That final is on Sunday. We will bring you a preview on Saturday for that final on Sunday upcoming. But until then, it is all I say is best of luck, Kev. Let's hope we have a good game, and we'll see you next time.
And come on, England.
Come on.